Hi, hello, it's Reti here. Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to my garden. Yes, I know I owe an apology for those of you who have been waiting to hear from us. We have been busy and every morning I face the same question. Should I make a YouTube video or should I rather do an emergent, urgent project in the garden? And usually, more or less, most of the time, more or less all the time, the option that wins is doing something in the garden. But anyways, finally I'm here and I have some very exciting news from you. At least those are very exciting news for us, which is that we are finally able to eat mostly from the garden. For those of you who don't know us, me and my husband, we bought an off-grid property or an off-grid farm in Centrall Portugal around a year ago, which is exactly last year in August. Right now we are in June, so it's been 10 months since we bought this property and we started our off-grid journey here with trying to grow our own food and be as independent and self-sufficient as we can. And we have been trying to grow food the whole winter with some success. We have been eating many things from the garden already in the winter. But right now in June, I can really say that we are eating mostly from the garden. Yes, of course, I'm not digging out my own salt and I'm not growing my own spaghetti and rice. I'm also not growing rice yet. Maybe in one day I will, but most of our food is coming from the garden for now. And yeah, since a couple of weeks, we actually have meals that we realized that actually all the ingredients except for the salt are coming from our land. And for us, this is a major milestone that we have reached. So this greenhouse looks a little bit like a jungle. Tomato plants are taller than me. And we're very, very happy having this greenhouse because it allows us to grow cucumbers, tomatoes and peppers much earlier than we would be able to grow them outside. So we had our first tomatoes from this greenhouse in the end of May. And from outside we still don't get tomatoes. And tomatoes and cucumbers and peppers, those are like really important food for us. We are eating a lot of them. So we are super happy having this greenhouse. So one of the major milestones for us was the first week of June when we realized that the potatoes are ready for harvesting. And I'm saying that we realized that they are ready for harvesting because I think we could have actually harvested them already a week or two earlier, but we just didn't realize that they are ready because I never grew potatoes before. So I didn't know how long they actually take to get ready. And when we finally realized that we can harvest our own potatoes, that was a major breakthrough for us because potatoes are our major food source. We love potatoes and we can eat potatoes in all kinds of forms. We can eat baked potatoes, we can eat cooked potatoes, fried potatoes, potatoes in the curry, potatoes in the stew, and many other forms of potatoes, mashed potatoes, and so on. So when we realized that we can eat our own potatoes, our food shopping dropped tremendously and we feel much more self-sufficient in the food. We planted those potatoes in the end of March, beginning of April. So it's been more or less 2 months since we planted them. So this here is my three sisters garden bed. It's actually 4 sisters, as you can see. The 4th sister is right now the most prominent one, is the sunflower, which is an optional one in the 3 sister bed, but they love it here. They're so beautiful. But basically the 3 sisters bed is corn. And I have corn here. So our first corn cobs coming in. That looks already, it's ready to harvest in a week, I would say. And under the corn there are beans. They're hard to find right now because everything else is so much higher. There are some green beans. We have already harvested some and they are producing a few beans already. We have already eaten some of them. And under the beans, so the beans are fixing nitrogen and using corn for climbing. And under the corn and beans are pumpkins. They could be squashes, but in my case I have just put pumpkins here. And look at this. It's a pumpkin almost ready to harvest. This is one of my strawberry beds. The first fruits we started to get this year are the strawberries. And who doesn't love strawberries? We have not big amounts of strawberries, but every day we get few. And of course we have to compete with the birds for the strawberries, because the birds also love them. And many times we are waiting for the strawberries to get red, and before we get them, the birds actually get them. Here's another one. So strawberries are performing pretty well. Those are my strawberry beds from hay and horse manure that I built this spring. I think the strawberries seem to love them. And as you can see, I have interplanted in the strawberry beds a lot of herbs. In this one, in the center, I have a lemon verbena. That's the place where originally was the strawberry guava, which unfortunately died in the winter. So I replaced it with lemon verbena. Then I have oregano here. I have chives and sage is here. And somewhere was rosemary. Yeah, like here is a little rosemary. All these herbs I have also either started from seed or propagated from the other plants. And there are a few onions here and there, because strawberries they like to be interplanted with herbs, because the herbs are keeping the pests away. And in my case it seems to work really well here. And of course the bonus is that I will also get herbs. Look at those chives, love them, doing really well. And the sage. This raspberry plant here that we planted last autumn has surprised us with quite a lot of berries already this spring. Again, we have a high competition here with the birds, who is first to get them. But we have managed to get quite a few raspberries from this plant already. And around this apricot tree here, I had a tree killed of fava beans. and garlic. And the fava beans, they performed really well in the early spring. Suddenly we started to get beans, which we didn't even expect, and it was very welcome in the early spring when there was not much other food in the garden. And now in the beginning of June they all started to dry out, and we harvested all the beans and we chopped and dropped them down. So we used the leftovers of the fava beans plants as mulch to mulch the tree. And now we still have the garlic left here. And the garlic is starting to flower, which means that it should be kind of ready to harvest. Let's see how is it doing. Let's take one garlic. Wow, that's a garlic. That's a full-on garlic here, as you can see. This is a garlic. So our 3 gills. Amazing. This is a pretty good sized garlic. So the 3 gills are not only benefiting the trees, but they are also giving us food. And this here is what I call our grandmother broccoli. If you have seen our very first video, if you haven't seen, go and check it out. That's the very first video, very exciting, when we just bought the land, and the very first day I actually made this garden bed here with the hay that we took out from the ruin. And I planted a few broccolis there and salads. And this is still the same broccoli that I planted almost a year ago. And since it's a type of broccoli that gives out side shoots, I've been harvesting it the whole winter. Until now, I harvested it just a few days ago. I got some side shoots, and here we have a few more. They're relatively small, but I get every day like 5-6 of them, which are enough to add them to curry. So this is an amazing plant, and I still didn't take it out because it's still producing. It's still producing little broccolis. And the leaves are edible as well, so I can also eat the leaves. And since my broccolis this year didn't do very well, this is still my best broccoli plant. It's pretty amazing. The rest of the bed I have reused. There are also some rocket salad that we are still eating. And I have planted some tomatoes. Actually, I was planning to take this broccoli out. That's why I put the tomatoes and peppers in here, because I know they are not usually good companions. But since this broccoli doesn't stop growing, I just cannot take it out. And they just have to share the space with my tomatoes and peppers for this time. And next to this bed, I have some other beds which I'm experimenting with shade cloth. We made a shade structure from our eucalyptus. And I want to see if actually the tomatoes and other plants like it more in the shade. So here I have also more tomatoes and peppers and eggplant. And they seem to actually love the shade because they seem to grow better than the other plants. Here is a cucumber bed in the shade. My cucumbers are not doing very well. And here is another cucumber bed which is not in the shade, which for some reason actually is doing better for now. And from here I'm getting already quite some cucumbers. Those are all little pickling cucumbers. So those here are ready to harvest, and we have been already eating them for a couple of weeks now. I get every day a few for the salad. I can't wait to get enough of them to make really pickles, because I love pickles. And they are all getting weird shapes. But I love small cucumbers. They just taste so good. And behind there is a whole squash or pumpkin hill. A lot of pumpkins. This is again one of those compost beds or lasagna beds that I made last year. And the pumpkins absolutely love it, as you can see. Let's see if we can find some pumpkins here. They have a lot of leaves, but not only. If you look between the leaves, they also have flowers and bumblebees. And they are trying to escape. They're trying to crawl over to the neighbor's land already. And here I have a pumpkin. Let's see if we find another one. Oh yeah, that's a huge one. This is a pretty big pumpkin right here. So the pumpkins really seem to love it here. One of the absolutely amazing vegetables that I have planted and I'm very happy for are the red beets. Because the red beets, you can eat not only the beets but also the leaves. The leaves are full of nutrition. They have very high content of iron. And they are even more healthy than the beets themselves. They are basically the same as Swiss chard. And since my Swiss chards, they started flowering and I kind of lost them. I'm eating the beet leaves now and I'm using them basically the same way as I would use spinach. I'm also growing spinach, but the beet leaves, they are just growing so much better and I'm getting so many of them. I'm really becoming a fan of fava beans because, as I told you before, they were like the first beans that came up early in the spring when nothing else was producing. And now we planted some of those fava beans between the potatoes because they are fixing nitrogen and I thought it will be good for the potatoes. And those are already, we planted them 2 months ago with the potatoes and they are already producing beans. And they are such a good source of nutrition. For us as vegetarians, we need some source of proteins. And fava beans are really, really good for it. You can use them in so many different ways. You can add them to the curries and you can make them with tomatoes. You can make them into something like hummus type of thing. So there are like so many different ways of using them. And they grow so easily. They are so good for the soil. And we don't need to buy our tofu anymore. We can just use fava beans instead of tofu. Also not an unimportant part of our diet are the green herbs. I'm using a lot of parsley, cilantro, basil, dill. I love them and they are very high in nutritional value. They contain a lot of iron and a lot of other important minerals and vitamins. And I'm also using a lot of wild herbs in my cooking. We are blessed with having a lot of wild herbs around us, so I'm using a lot of wild greens in salads as well as cooked herbs. Of course, only the ones that I know really well, like this one here, because adding wild greens to your cooking adds a lot of micronutrients that the cultivated foods often don't have so many. And this here is the flower meadow that we planted this spring, because we had this 2,000 square meter field that we asked our neighbor to till half of it so that we can plant our potatoes. But as most Portuguese people, he was too kind and wanted to help us too much. So instead of tilling only half of it, he actually tilled the whole field. So we had like 1,000 square meters extra space, which we didn't know what to do with. So we decided to plant some flowers. So we just went around and threw some flower seeds, and let's see what happens. And what happened is this. Half of it didn't grow very well because it was not enough water, but this part here looks pretty amazing. We planted flowers for the bees and some medicinal flowers. So as you can see here, we have a lot of different flowers, and I planted also a lot of calendula, because calendula is one of my favorite medicinal plants. And I can make tinctures, I can make oils and salves with it. And now I'm ready to harvest my first calendula and make my first calendula oil or tincture. And it makes me very happy.